Welcome back, I'm 𝗣8𝗶𝗱. In this video we're going to be covering a bunch of modifications on the 𝗣𝗶𝗱 Storm 150 DLX. This is a little street and off-road bike. I got it plated. If you haven't seen how I got it all plated and all that, I'll put a playlist down below for 2 other videos I've made on it so far. In this video we're going to be doing a bunch of modifications that I think make the bike better for my needs. From headlights to batteries and chains and sprockets and gearing. So some of them are free, some of them cost about $110. So there's a range of modifications. This is part 1. We're going to do a part 2 and address a little bit more, trying to get a little more horsepower out of it. But at some point, it's an $850 bike plus $300 shipping. You got to be realistic about how much money you want to dump into something like this. But it is 180 pounds, and that's why I want to modify it for tight trails and riding around the woods around my place. So stay tuned, enjoy the video. All right. Ordered a few things for the bike. I ordered some Scott grips, thinking that these grips weren't going to be good. I ordered them before I got the bike, and these ones actually pretty soft, squishy, and grippy. I think I'm going to keep them on, see how they hold up. One thing we're going to put on is hand guards. These ones aren't big full coverage ones to keep your hands warm in the winter, but what they will do, they strengthen the handlebars from bending to protect your throttle so your bike dumps doesn't go wide open, doesn't get broken up. They just kind of protect the levers and hitting your hands on any brush or trees. I've always been a big fan of hand guards on all my bikes. These ones are pretty affordable on Amazon, like 20, 25 bucks. They're probably not the most durable, but this is a 180-pound bike, so they're going to hold up fine. Unfortunately, ordered these on Amazon. No one's ever said anything about fitment on aluminum bars being an issue, because the aluminum bars are thicker than steel. These end caps aren't going to fit on here. Now I know most of you guys don't have lathes in your shop, so I'll find a set that actually works with aluminum bars here, and I'll link those instead. These ones definitely are not going to fit without modifications. So I realized by drilling a new hole, get rid of this tab, it's going to fit on here a lot better. It's a nice thing about super cheap hand guards is you don't mind cutting and modifying. So there's definitely a bunch of different ways you can cut your throttle tube back, but I found by just buffing it down with a flap wheel and an angle grinder and removing all the burrs with a little razor knife, it's about the simplest way, because you got to slide your throttle in and make sure it has a little clearance between the bar and the hand guard so it doesn't stick. Works pretty well. So when you set up hand guards, you want to make sure that the throttle grip and the throttle tube is cleaned up and sitting inside. Make sure that your throttle, when I tighten this down, you want to make sure it springs back and doesn't hang up on the hand guard. So hand guards are definitely a cheap assurance, especially for 25 bucks to protect your hands. One time I was riding, clipped a tree really hard, knocked my handlebars, but didn't crash. Stopped around the corner, ran back to tell the other rider behind me. By the time I got there, he didn't have hand guards and he broke his little pinky finger bad. There you go, a little hand protection from brush, and I won't be breaking the levers hopefully on here. It's a nice thing to have for like 20 some bucks. These ones of course took a little modification, and we'll see how they hold up for dumping the bike. I've had a few of these cheapy brush guards, and I think I ended up breaking a set on my KDX 200, but that was after a bunch of crashes and clear cuts and slipping on logs, and did crack, but yeah, time will tell. Ordered this little set of spoke wrenches here. Should have a bunch of different sizes. Hopefully one of them actually fits. We're going to go over this thing and check the rims probably after tomorrow after riding. Just double check all the spokes are staying tight. So another thing I did was I ended up switching out the fuel filter and fuel line. This is some 3/16. Got some new little metal clips, just because a lot of the Chinese rubber on bikes I've seen over the years really comes apart and starts cracking. I just didn't want to deal with the fuel line cracking, dripping on the motor when I'm out on the trail. Wasn't a problem yet, but it will be. They don't have a reserve. That's a bummer. If I'm going on any long trips, I'm going to be taking a little extra fuel bottle. Even a quart will get me by a long ways, but yeah, it's just an on-off valve. Side note, here's that pretty intricate frame. It's got a cross bracing up through here. There's a wiring loom going down it, connecting that. Pretty decent shock support. Subframe is decent. It's not giant, but then goes to this metal plate back here, and that goes to those really tiny bars. So I had a great day out riding. I did about 50-mile ride from my place on roads up there. Did about 20 miles of definitely some fast-paced trail riding.
Bike performed really well. And then when I got home, it was kind of wet on the trails. I noticed my brake light wasn't working, my running light was. Keep in mind, I bottomed it out and ripped the reflector off of this, so it's shaking around a lot. I pulled the seat off to start looking over wiring connections, and then I got my voltmeter out. One of the little green wires that go back to your brake light for the positive for the LED came unsoldered off the circuit board. So I resoldered it through the little hole here. I recommend everybody does this with any of these little cheap bike taillights. Caulk the tail light where it meets the plastic backing. Squirt caulking, like clear caulking in around the wires to like keep them from bouncing around as much. And caulk the back of it because water gets sprayed in there, and I had water on my lens. So I dried it out, resoldered that. Before I fixed it, I sent the email off to 𝗣𝐶PRO, waiting to hear back. They'll send me a new brake light. In the meantime, I repaired it.
Well, okay, this is pretty cool. I got an email yesterday from the company MaxPro, where I got the bikes from, saying that they shipped out one of my parts I requested, which was the taillight. And I got another email later in the day that they sent out the headlight cage. It's 2 days from California, but it came the next day. So there it is. That's pretty cool. Keep in mind, these taillights are shit on these bikes. I just got this Templar, rode this Templar for 12 miles, damn taillight wire broke, so I pulled it out, sent them a picture, I'm requesting another one. Here's a clear silicone sealant. So this fender drop down elimination I wanted to do a while back before I took it on a longer ride. But hitting some bigger step downs and stuff, the fender elimination kind of took care of itself. Ripped off my fender reflector when it bottomed out once. So I stiffened up the shock, and also I wanted to drill this and move up the license plate a little bit and cut it a little shorter. Still don't mind a little bit of splash protection there from getting mud. Just don't really want it up my back. I just didn't want something hanging down that was going to bounce, put any more weight on those little tiny bars under the seat, and just kind of clean it up a little bit. Fender elimination kind of going on here, so that's pretty good. Ordered a spanner wrench kit on Amazon. Links below if you got a bike you want to adjust. This has 6 different sizes. I've always used a screwdriver and hammer, and it kind of chews it up. So let's go through here and figure out what size is going to fit this thing. Add a little bit of preload to that back shock. See if it helps on the next trail ride. Looks like the ER40 is going to fit the shock the best here. So I went through here. It kind of took a little while because I can only reach the spanner in and to get it one click basically on each side of the bike. So maybe like a 1/8 of a turn every time I reached in there. We got it preloaded quite a bit, about a 1/2 inch, and that seemed to stiffen up the shock tremendously. There's a lot more adjustment available. I brought it down probably about, I don't know, 1/2 inch, maybe 3/4 of an inch. The shock is threaded way down to here, so you could preload it quite a bit further down to here. But I'll ride around tomorrow, see if that made any difference. I really like the way the bike rode on the trails for my weight, other than anytime you hit a fairly big step up or step down. I mean, not going crazy with it either, it would bottom out. We'll see if that preload helped. So I ordered a anti-gravity 4-cell battery. I have one of my KTM, and they're fantastic, very reliable, good cranking amp battery, super light. And I figured if I could put one in a very high-end bike, why can't I put one in a very affordable bike? So we're gonna pull this old battery out. I hear that the chains and batteries on these bikes are kind of garbage, and the chain does seem to be not very good quality. The little mini pit bike I got for my son was literally missing one of the side chain links, what was riveted over still. The battery is the best place I could find on eBay. Was about like $107 with free shipping. Once you see the size difference, it makes a difference. So weight, it's really high, so you might as well lighten it up as much as you can, make the bike feel more nimble and light. So here's the new battery. You can see the physical size is much tinier. Really nice terminals on here. It also comes with some foam pads to block out your battery compartment so your battery's not wiggling around in here. This is the 401, 120 cranking amps. So let's weigh these guys here, see the difference. So this is set up on ounces. Stock battery is 3 pounds, 4.3 ounces. That is 14 ounces, so that's a significant difference. This is under a pound. Pretty simple, self-explanatory upgrade here. Get the battery, pay a little bit more than the cheaper batteries, but they got really good terminals. You hook everything up, comes with the hardware. Just kind of working in some stick-on foam that I had kicking around here to kind of soften the battery up against the frame, and taking some of the foam that comes with it to kind of block out the area just so the battery doesn't rattle around, and you're done. Really simple installation. Here's a stock shifter that came on this thing. It folds in. It's not too bad. It's a little steel shifter. It's fairly short. I didn't find it to be a problem riding on the trails, but I just had regular work boots on. Maybe motorcycle boots might be an issue. It was missing a cotter key in the bottom. I put one in when I got it. I ordered this aluminum one here. Had to do a little research on the actual shaft size. I think it was 11.5 millimeter and I think 30 spline. I'll have to double check that. There were some 35s and some 10 millimeters out there. The reason I ordered this one was aluminum. A lot of them online were just these cheap rivets that went through right up here, and it was just peened over. This actually has some hardware, but it actually looks like a good shifter. I kind of wanted to get one a little shorter than this one, but a little longer than the stock. This is all I could really find that was going to fit this bike easily on Amazon. It was like 10 or 15 bucks. Put a link down below, but it's only probably about a half an inch longer, maybe. Another thing is, this one's fairly straight with a slight bend. This one bends out just a little bit, but I think it's going to be just fine. So here's the two shifters. See the length is just barely longer. Feels lighter though. Let's put these on the scale real quick. Okay, the stock one with the mounting hardware in it, 5.9 ounces. 3.2 for the aftermarket one. Now we're talking shaving hairs on this one. This is like what you consider when you're going out backpacking, is every little ounce you can take off your camping gear makes a difference. I don't think it's going to make that much difference on the bike, but like I said, a little bit longer one would be good. And this one just kind of flared out and funky looking here and kind of had this bow to it. This just looks like a nicer, higher quality aluminum shifter. And the price is right. I'm not really trying to break the bank on any of these upgrades. I'm not going for anything massively crazy. Just kind of fixing a few components on the bike that I thought were maybe lower quality, or I could maybe find something that would work better for me. That's all. Nice spring back on that. Nice aluminum shifter. So I took the bike out, took it up the road after dark. Saw a deer jump right out in front of me and a rabbit, but other than that, I was right on the brake, so no big thing. I mean, that's part of riding bikes, but people said the headlights aren't very good on some of these pit bikes. I have to say it's not very good the way it is. I've tried to adjust it down with this little adjustment screw down here. It doesn't want to come down much, so I'm gonna actually shim the whole number plate out a little bit on the top bolt here. So I'm gonna take this off, put a little shim in there, because I noticed if I push the light down a little bit, I got much more of a spot where I needed to on the road, because high beam's just shining way too high up. So when I ordered the Storm 150, the website I ordered it from mentioned it had a 3-month warranty to kind of work out any issues you might have with the bike. The taillight went out right off the bat when I took on a trail ride. Sent them information to get a warranted taillight. They came good on that. The headlight frame, when I got it, I sent them a little video of the headlight mount. The pegs in the bottom were kind of the wrong position and one of the welds cracked on it. Easy to fix. I could have just cut some stuff and re-welded it. I just want to follow up and make sure the company was good on their 3-month warranty. This was back ordered 10 days. It said as soon as it comes back in stock, they'll send it up. And it looks like they got me the proper one. Better weld and the pegs in the proper place. So I'm going to swap this thing in. So here is the part they sent me. See, these pegs are in closer down here. These ones I had to bend in to get to fit the front fender, and these ones are in the proper location. You can see they came from a different factory. They got a different finish on them. Oh, and the weld was broken over here as well on this one. And this one, the weld looks slightly better. So another thing I did was I put a longer piece of hardware here and a washer to bring this whole headlight assembly forward a little bit to help with the headlight. I found the headlight on this bike, no matter what I did for adjustments, it always was shining too high. The headlight adjustment does not work very good on this bike. That's why I shimmed this whole headlight assembly out further. I have a hard time getting the headlight down far enough. It had this little lock nut in here and a screw and this little tiny spring in here that when you release the tension on this, it's supposed to let the headlight drop down, which it wasn't. So I'm going to replace it with a longer spring to give it a little more spring pressure to allow the headlight to drop down in the housing and actually get it adjusted so you can see something when you're riding on the road. So there it is with the longer spring. So you can see when you loosen the tension on the nut, it allows the headlight to drop back. So if you tighten up the bolt, the headlight's going to come up in the housing. And then if you release the tension, it's going to drop down. It wasn't dropping down far enough. So combination between this spring and that shim back there, I think it's going to help. All right, so we're going to pull off the stock carb on the 𝗣𝐵𝗱 150. I think on the website claims it's a 27. We'll see, because I think 28 seems almost too big for this little 150. Going to check the spark plug color real quick. I assume it's going to be kind of a white gray, being lean. We're going to clean up these heads and put new hardware in here so we can take the float ball off easier. See if we can do a little bit of rejetting on this carb. So just pulled the plug out first time to look at it. While I have it out, I'm going to probably, this is called a torch, A7TC. I'm going to see if I can find a nice NGK, but I would say it's on the gray side of things. Just maybe a little hue of tan, which is good, but I think it's a little lean still. So we're going to just up the jet just a tiny bit on this thing. Like I said, it doesn't look too bad. I've seen a lot of Yamaha like TW200s and Suzuki DR200s come pretty lean like this for street use. Pay attention when you put this gasket back on. This O-ring on this intake manifold gasket goes towards the aluminum intake. This side doesn't have an O-ring because the carb itself has an O-ring on it. This carb says PZ27 on here, so it is a 27 mil carb. I think that's plenty. They went pretty good. I think some people are upgrading carbs in the Hawk 125 because they have a smaller carb. But being a 27 millimeter, I think that is fine. I think we're going to run with this and just rejet it. You can see the float bowl screws are just kind of peened over and they don't have anything, so we're going to cut the little flathead slots in there, pull them out. And also the idle mixture screw, unfortunately the way this one sits is right on top of the head, and it'd be very hard to adjust this when the bike's running, but we're going to drill that out and pull that cap out of there anyhow. That's maybe one benefit going with one of the 𝗍𝐵𝗱 is because I think they got an adjustment screw on the side, which would be a lot easier to do your idle adjustment screw. But okay, let's get cutting the slots in here. Drain the float bowl 100%. Let the carb sit around for a while and dry out. You don't want a bunch of gas in here when you're trying to make sparks and grind on these things. Do at your own risk, or just buy a 𝗍𝐵𝗱. I'll have a link below for the carb that should fit this thing. As the video progresses, you'll see these are probably not even worth messing with these carbs unless you just keep it bone stock. Got one slot cut in there. Came loose super easy. So we're going to find the equivalent screws for these, and I'll give you guys the specs and size. Just use one of these little tiny cutoff wheels. If you do, use eye protection. Okay, they actually are written on here, which is nice. They actually put a size. So the idle jet is a 35. And the main, I believe, is a 95. So if that's the case, might put a 100 or a 105 in here. Might just keep the idle jet the way it is, and maybe, you know, if we have a 38, maybe we'll put it in. But I don't know if I have kind of split sizes. I think all my sizes go from like 5 increments. So see what we can find. I will put links to Amazon for jets that fit this bike. I just have ordered so many for different carbs over the years. I'll put what you guys need. All right, let's get rejetting this thing. So my main jets are going to work. I actually have, it was a 95 in here. I have a 100, 105, and 108, so we're going to play around with those. But they pulled a fast one on me. They have this like jet adapter, and this is your idle jet here. And as you can see, it doesn't fit your standard jet. So I'm going to dig around and see if I can find this. I may only have links for you guys for the main jet, but that's probably all we got to change at idled fine. I wouldn't mind giving a little bit fatter jet on idle, but you know, we're going to change out our main. That's probably where we need to deal with it. But I'm going to dig around and see if I can find the right jets for the idle. If I do, I'll include it down below. So that idle jet was really weird. I couldn't find anything for that. So I ended up playing around with different jets and went all the way up to 115, but came back to about 100. Stock was 95. I think that works for my elevation so far, but I'm going to go definitely in 𝗍𝐵𝗱 in the next video because there's a few other weird things I didn't like about this carb. Keep it stock is fine. If you modify it, just go 𝗍𝐵𝗱. So this is the spark plug came out of. It's a Torch A7TC. Went to the auto parts store. This is an NGK plug, which is good, but it's a C7HSA. I'll put the numbers on here, and I'm going to try to find a much nicer plug than this. I mean, this is a higher quality plug than this one, and this is a direct replacement for it. But I wouldn't mind getting something more quality than this. So if I find a better plug for this bike, I'll let you guys know. On to some gearing now on the front countershaft sprocket. Just measured the countershaft, and it's 17 millimeters. So I'm gonna order some sprockets because this thing I took out for a night ride tonight and it's pretty slow. It's got a 14 on here now, so get a sprocket ordered. All right, like I said earlier, the batteries in these bikes and the chains aren't very good, so we replaced the battery earlier. This chain, probably get a few hundred miles out of it, but I just don't want to run the risk of dealing with it stretching, skipping off, or cracking and breaking the case. So I got an RK chain. This should be pretty good. I'm not going for an O-ring because they kind of rob a lot of power on small displacement bikes, so just a regular RK chain made in Japan. Stock front sprocket is a 14 tooth, 17 millimeter shaft. We got a 15, a 16, and the 17, so we're gonna swap in a few of these and see what it is. But first we gotta go get a little ride down the road, get a kind of a baseline of what maybe 7,000 or 8,000 RPM is speed wise, and we got something to base it off of to see what kind of gearing we get out of it. So let's go take it for a quick spin. So at 8 grand, it's doing 44 miles an hour, 44, 45 at 8,000 RPMs. Definitely a lot of fun with this 14 tooth. The bike wheelies really, really well. Another note, when you take off sprockets and swap them out, make sure to use a little bit of Loctite, blue Loctite on your bolts that hold your sprocket on. All right, so we're going from a 14 stock to a 15 right here. This is a 428 chain on this bike. There's some of that blue Loctite. Don't forget to put those on your hardware. You can also put your bike in gear just so you can torque them down a little bit. Next, we got to back off the chain adjusters on the bike. I'm not a big fan of these chain adjusters, but hey, they're on the bike and they do the job. If you've been working on motorcycles for a long time, you know this, but if you're new to bikes, do not install your master link wrong. So here's a plate that goes on the master link. Now, here's the clip. The clip, the rounded end, this is the open end, the rounded end should always be in the direction the train's traveling. So the rounded end here would be traveling like this around the chain, of course. You never want to put it, if this is on the top here, you never want to put it with this open end forward. So it can hit something and get knocked off and your chain will come flying off. So that's the rounded end, that's the open end. Chain's going that way. So quick note, if you're on an ultimate budget and trying to milk some life out of this chain, which I don't recommend doing, you have to adjust it a lot. And if it does snap and it hits your side case, then all of a sudden you're going to be on a search for a side case. It's a 14 stock front sprocket. If you decide to upgrade with sticking with the stock chain, you will have to only go up one tooth to a 15. I've got the adjusters all the way in, and that's basically all I can fit on here. We got the RK chain, so we'll make it extra long, try the 16 and 17. But there's a point to where you got to find a balance. It's not a highway bike, so you're not going to be ripping around the highways, so you're going to run out of power. Do you want to gear it so tall it's all right for roads, but it doesn't perform very well on trails? It's kind of a balance. I'd rather have it for trails and back paved roads to get to trails. I'm never going to take this on a 55 mile an hour stretch for very long. It might be to get from one road to another road, and that's it. So you got to kind of be realistic what 150 cc's can do on a bike like this. It's a trail bike that you can ride on the pavement to the trails. All right, it's raining pretty damn hard out here, but 8,000 is about 47, 48 miles an hour, so definitely better. Nine's about 52, 53. So about 52, 53 is full pin, at least going slightly uphill here. Really nasty weather. I think we're going to continue this gearing on the next video. Weather's been terrible lately. Still wheelie's pretty good. Doesn't quite have the same grunt off the bottom as it did, but it's still pretty good. I think this 15 is going to stay on here. But I think this is going to be all right for trails still. So I think that's good for the gearing. I went up from a 14 to 15. It's raining like crazy out there. It's end of January, so it's kind of cold. In the video, we're just going to imagine I put the arcade chain on, because I'm going to save that. We'll play around in a future video maybe with the 16 and 17 tooth, but I really think it's pointless unless I get more power out of the engine. Maxed out on the road was about 9 grand with the 15 tooth. Right in that range, and it was pulling 52 to 53, maybe on a slight uphill, but that's about all the engine wants to pull here. That was pretty similar to my fuel-injected Honda Grom 125, was around 52, 53, maybe a little bit more tucked, but that was about it. If you got one of these bikes, put an arcade chain on there or a better quality chain. Links to some of these parts and pieces like sprockets, shifters, and chains and stuff will be down below in the description. I couldn't find this battery. If I can find it on Amazon, I'll put it there. If not, dig it up on eBay. For this video, we're going to probably round it up. Just the last little bit of doing a little bit of trail riding, because I can kind of fit it in between rain, and be a nice way to round out the video instead of just all being in the shop. You can see some riding. But there's going to be some follow-up video here. This is going to be basically like modifications to the 150 Storm, part 1. Part 2, we're going to jump into some things that I don't think are going to be that necessary, but I'm going to do them. And that is, I got an FMF exhaust with the spark arrestor, so it'll be legal in National Forest and just riding trails and things. So that's one of the biggest reasons. The exhaust on here is fine to me, maybe a little loud. I don't think it's going to be any quieter, but it's got the US Forest Service approved spark arrestor, so we're going to modify that to fit. Got a NIMBY carb. This one's actually 27. I went for 26. I didn't want to overcarb it. I like the low end and mid-range grunt the bike has. Top end is just fine, but you can go to 28. It's barely bigger than this one, but I would rather have the grunt and mid-range power on this thing. You know, top end's top end, it's fine. It's a little tiny bike. So it's NIMBY carb we're gonna put on here. One of the big reasons why I decided to go for a NIMBY rather than keeping the stock carb, the air mixture screw. You can actually get to it, it's on the side. This one, it's right up under here. You can't even get a tool on it. Without burning my fingers, the bike's still hot. That tube coming down right there is the tube for the idle mixture screw. Good luck ever getting some hardware in there and turning that, especially with the engine warmed up. It's just buried in there. So that's why we're going for that NIMBY. And going for it because of the idle jet was just really weird the way they had it set up. I think it's a fine carb if you keep the bike stock. I think you'll just do just fine. Jetting wasn't that far off anyhow. But we're going to the NIMBY and see if that kind of helps. I also found that this one's a little spotty on idle. The bike's kind of a little, not the smoothest of idling bikes. I kind of decided if I'm not going to keep stock jetting in here, it's time to move on to a different carb. So at least we can get to the air mixture screw here. To accommodate that, because it has a larger intake on it, but this should bolt right on. It's got the same outlet flange. It's got this really nice intake here, all polished slide and everything. I got another air filter that'll fit it. So yeah, we'll be doing carb, air filter, rejetting that, and a FMF exhaust in the next one. And if we can get some more power, maybe we'll try the 16 tooth, but I think the 15 is fine. And if I decide I really don't like that gearing, I can always go back to a 14. All right, let's go get on the trails and rip around a little bit. So I think some of you guys completely missed the point in the last few videos of these bikes, because did mention that I bought this bike mostly just to ride around the property with my son. Also do a little trail riding when he gets a little bit older, but just something fun to putt around the property with. He's been doing pretty good, just turned 7 and got that little pit bike for his birthday. But you have had all kinds of weird comments that, you know, real guys ride 2 strokes and this bike is just for beginners and all this stuff. Like, I'm just passing the torch, man, trying to teach my son how to ride and have fun. It's something that a dad and son can do together. And I think some of you tough guy, macho guys are missing the point. Yeah, it's only a 150cc bike. I'm okay with that. It doesn't mean or prove anything about me and my masculinity. It's just to have fun, ride around the trails with my son, and go out on occasional trail rides with other friends. Definitely looking forward to nicer, drier weather. We just had a bunch of snow melt recently and followed by inches of rain. So every log is slippery, snotty, nastiness sliding around, and a lot of muck. And so I'm looking forward to early spring, start getting some dry weather, and the trails won't be just complete slop. But yeah, definitely fun little bike to putt around on. The 180 pounds are really enjoyable on the trails, easy to whip around. Good little machine. You guys will see some update videos. Had some other people say really want to see like a 500 to 1,000 mile update. Keep in mind, it's the middle of winter. We're going to get there, but it's really hard to put on some miles when you're dealing with pouring down rain or snow on the trails. So we're going to get there. And the whole reason about this, I've had a lot of people say they're just all junk, they're crap, they're going to break. It's kind of why I bought the bike, to review it. I'm not telling anybody to go spend their hard-earned money on it. I bought this to try it out, see if the bikes hold up or not, and I'm going to share my true experience with them. So you guys got to have a little bit of patience. I can't put 500 miles on the bike instantly as soon as I get it. So we're going to go over reviewing it, going to get a bunch of miles on it this spring and summer, and I'm going to say what I say. I can't tell you, even though I stiffened up that back shock, hitting some little water bars and jumping some stuff, I definitely came close to bottoming out on the back, kind of caught my license plate. So I might buy an adjustable rear shock, or it just might be the limitations of this bike. Yeah, I don't know if I'm 100% sold on the 15 tooth for trail riding. I like the grunt second had before and third, and they just have a lacking a little bit of torque, but maybe with that FMF, if it opens up the exhaust a little bit for more flow, and that 𝗍𝐵 carb might open up a little more horse and be able to pull it. We'll see. Hey, what do you think about riding dirt bikes?
Great.
You like it?
Yeah.
Right on. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, hit like and subscribe. Leave a comment. Try to be nice about it. I've gotten too much flack for just making my own purchases and my own choices. So yeah, be respectful in the comment section. Till next time. If you haven't seen all my videos on these 𝗣𝗶𝗱 bikes that I've been buying and reviewing, check them out. I'll have a playlist down below.